The night in the elven forest was cold and silent as a lone human walked down the narrow path that cut through the glowing trees. The trees had silver leaves, and soft blue light fell on the ground, making the path look like a river of moonlight. The human walked slowly, with a hood over his head, and his boots made soft thuds on the wet ground. He had no weapon, no armor, and no reason to be there, yet he kept walking toward the place every human feared, the Night Elf's Tavern. Every elf child grew up hearing stories about this tavern. They said no human who entered ever returned. They said the elves inside could see your memories, your fears, your desires, and break your mind with a single look. They said the tavern itself moved through time and sometimes through worlds. But tonight the human was not afraid. His face was calm, and his eyes were steady. As he reached the old wooden door that stood under a carved arch of roots and glowing crystals, he pushed the door open and stepped inside the tavern, fell silent instantly. Every elf stopped drinking, stopped talking, stopped breathing for a moment as the human stood in the doorway. Long tables made of old oak stood on both sides, with elven warriors, hunters, mages, and travelers staring at him. Blue flames burned in lanterns fixed on the walls, casting shifting shadows that looked alive. A tall elf behind the counter slowly placed his silver cup down and narrowed his eyes. No one spoke, no one welcomed him. He did not belong there. The human closed the door behind him and took one step forward. Even that single step sounded too loud in the quiet. Hall, an elven guard near the entrance, touched the hilt of his blade. Another raised her hand, ready to cast a spell. They waited for the stranger to explain himself, but he did not speak at first. He looked around as if searching for something or someone. After a long, tense moment, he finally spoke with a steady voice. "I am here for the girl with the glowing eyes." Gasps spread across the room like a wave. Two elves stood up from their seats in shock. An older elf dropped his cup, and the silver metal rolled on the floor. Making no sound, the bartender leaned forward with disbelief in his golden eyes. Everyone stared at the human as if he had said the most forbidden thing in the world. "There is no such girl," one guard said, with anger and fear mixing in his voice. "You should leave while you can, human." But the human shook his head. He took off his hood, revealing tired eyes, dark hair, and a scar on his cheek that looked old and forgotten. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I know she is here." The elves exchanged nervous looks. Some whispered to each other, some stared at the human with fear, some with curiosity, because the girl he spoke of was not just a rumor. She was a legend, a curse, a secret. Every elf in the tavern wished to forget. The girl with the glowing eyes had not been seen in 3 centuries. The bartender finally spoke, his voice low and cold. "Who told you about her? Humans do not know this name." The human looked around again, as if listening to something only he could hear. A soft breeze moved inside, even though no window was open. He took one more step toward the center of the tavern and said, "She told me to come." The elves froze. Some even stepped back. A few flames flickered and changed into a pale blue, as if reacting to his words. Suddenly, a faint voice spoke from the darkest corner of the tavern. A voice that sounded young and ancient at the same time, a voice full of warmth and sorrow. "He is telling the truth." The elves turned as one, their eyes widened, shadows moved, and from the darkness, a girl stepped out. Her hair silver like moonlight, her skin pale like frost, and her eyes glowing softly with blue light. The human stared at her without fear. The girl stared back with trembling hands, as if she had waited lifetimes for this moment. Whispers filled the tavern like rising wind. "It is her. It cannot be. She was dead. She was gone." She walked toward the human slowly as the tavern shook with tension. Her voice broke as she spoke his name. "You came back," and the human whispered, "I promised." The elves watched in terror, because this was the moment the old curse awakened again. The tavern air felt heavy as the girl with glowing eyes stood before the human. Every elf watched her with fear and confusion, because none of them understood how she could exist. Her presence alone made the blue flames flicker and twist like they were alive. The human stood still, his heart beating slow but strong, as if he had known this moment for a long time, but he did not remember her face. He did not remember her name, he did not remember anything about her, yet something deep inside him whispered that she was important. The girl reached out her hand, but stopped halfway. As if afraid to touch him, she looked into his eyes, and her lips trembled. "Do you remember me?" Her voice was soft and fragile, like a memory that was fading. The human shook his head slowly. "I do not, but I know you called me here. I know I had to come." A murmur spread across the tavern. Some elves stepped back, some leaned forward, some held their breath. The bartender watched with wide eyes filled with old fear. He whispered to himself, "This is the beginning again." The girl lowered her hand, and her glowing eyes dimmed for a moment. She looked almost broken, almost human. But then she took a deep breath and stood straight. Her glow returned brighter than before. "It is not your fault. Every time you come back, you forget." "But I remember everything." Her words made the human frown. "What do you mean?" Every time she looked down at her cold hands and whispered, "This is not your first time here. You have walked into this tavern many times, in many nights, in many lives." The human felt a strange chill. He tried to remember, but his mind was empty like a blank page. What happened before? Why did I forget? Why am I here? Before she could answer, an old elf with long white hair stepped forward. He held a wooden staff covered in ancient runes, and his voice shook with anger. "You should not speak of the past. You should not tell him anything. The curse must remain unbroken." The girl turned to him, her eyes glowing brighter. "The curse was never meant to last. You know this, we all know this. It is time to end it." The old elf slammed his staff on the floor. A shock of blue light rippled through the tavern. He shouted, "If he remembers everything, the world will break again. We cannot allow the loop to reset." The tavern shook, chairs rattled. Lanterns flickered, some elves grabbed their weapons, others prepared spells. Fear filled the room like thick, dark fog, but the human did not move. He looked at the girl, he looked at the old elf, and he spoke with steady calm. "Tell me the truth. What loop? What curse? What happened to me?" The girl breathed in slowly and reached for his hand again. This time she did not stop. Her fingers touched his skin. A flood of images flashed in his head. Fire wore a silver moon over a burning city. A young elf girl crying his name, a blade through his chest, a whisper, "I will find you again." The human staggered back, holding his head. The memory shattered like glass. He could not grasp it. He could not understand it. But he knew it was real. The girl stepped closer. "You died long ago. And when you died, the elves used a forbidden spell to trap time. They feared the war would never end. So they created a loop that reset the world every time you returned. But the spell was flawed. I was tied to it. I remembered everything. You forgot everything." The human stared at her, his heart pounding faster. "So I have died before." She nodded yes. "Many times you died for me, and each time you returned, I tried to save you, but the loop always pulled you away, until now." The old elf lifted his staff again. His voice was full of fear and rage. "You cannot break the loop. If he remembers the truth, the curse will collapse, the tavern will disappear, and the ancient war will begin again." The human stepped in front of the girl, his voice firm. "Then let it collapse. I am tired of forgetting. I want the truth." The tavern groaned, as if alive. The floor shook, the walls cracked with light. Flames turned white and silent like frozen fire. The girl grabbed his arm, her glowing eyes shined brighter than stars. "Then come with me. There is a place where no elf will dare follow, a place outside the loop, a place where your memories still live." She pulled him toward the back door. Elves shouted, spells fired, the air burst with magic. But the girl lifted her hand, and a wave of blue light swept through the tavern, pushing everyone back. The human and the girl ran through the door and vanished into the darkness beyond the tavern, leaving the world behind and leaving. The curse trembling on the edge of breaking. The night outside the tavern was colder than the human expected. The air felt thin, like it belonged to another world. Strange blue mist curled around their feet as he followed the girl with glowing eyes through the hidden back path. The forest behind the Night Elves Tavern did not look like any normal forest. The trees twisted toward the sky as if reaching for something that did not exist. Their leaves glowed softly, like small moons floating in darkness. The girl moved quickly, yet gracefully. Her steps barely made a sound. The human felt like he was chasing a ghost. He had many questions, but every time he tried to speak, the forest seemed to answer. Instead, soft whispers came from the trees. Voices of old voices of forgotten lives. Some whispered his name, some whispered warnings. Finally he spoke, "Tell me everything, no more secrets." The girl slowed down. She turned to him, and for a moment her glowing eyes dimmed as if the weight of her own memory was too heavy to carry. She took a slow breath. "You lived before many times. You walked through these woods again and again. You died again and again, and each time the elves turned back the world to avoid the war that followed your death." The human frowned. Why would my death cause a war? He did not feel powerful. He did not feel special. He felt like no one, yet the world seemed to turn around him. The girl looked at him with a sadness deeper than the night. "Because you changed everything. You united those who were never meant to stand together. Humans, elves, dwarves, night spirits, they followed you. They trusted you. And when you died, they broke the war that rose after your fall, nearly destroyed all realms. The elves cast the curse to stop that future." The human felt his heart tighten. He tried to remember, but his mind was like fog. Only small pieces appeared. Flashes of battle, flashes of fire. A young elf girl holding his hand, blood on the ground. A promise whispered in the wind, "I will return for you." The human touched his head. "Why did I forget?" The girl reached out and placed her hand over his chest. "Because the loop resets. Time folds around your soul. Your memory breaks. But mine does not. I am trapped between the end and the beginning. I remember every loop, every death, every return, and every moment I could not save you." Her voice cracked. The glow in her eyes shimmered like tears made of light. The human stepped closer. "Tell me who I was. Tell me what we were." She looked down, unable to speak at first, but then she whispered, "You were the one who saved me, and I was the girl the world wanted dead, because my power could break the loop, because my eyes hold the last light of the ancient star. The elves feared what I could do, so when you died saving me, they chose the curse. The curse bound me to time. It trapped me in the tavern. It left me waiting for you again and again." The human felt anger rise inside him like a forgotten flame. "So they stole my life and yours." She nodded slowly. "They believed it was the only way to protect the realms, but they never understood the curse made everything worse. Every loop made the world weaker, and every time you returned, the cracks in time grew wider. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The blue mist swirled faster. A deep, rumbling sound spread through the forest. The girl grabbed his hand. "The loop is angry. It knows you are remembering. We must move quickly." They ran deeper into the forest. The trees bent away from them like they were alive. The sky above flickered like a broken reflection. The loop was trying to erase the path. "Trying to stop them. Where are we going?" he asked. She pointed ahead. "To the memory chamber, the only place where the curse cannot reach. The only place where you can see who you once were." They ran until they reached a large stone arch covered in ancient symbols. Glowing vines wrapped around it, pulsing like a heartbeat. The girl touched the arch, and the stone shifted, opening a path made of light. The human stepped inside, and the world changed instantly. He stood in a vast chamber filled with floating shards of crystal. Each shard held a moving image. Scenes of battles, moments of peace, faces he could almost recognize, and then he saw himself. Younger, stronger, standing beside the glowing-eyed girl, protecting her. The girl stepped beside him. "These are your memories. Every life, every loop, every time you returned, you never came back the same, but you always came back for me." The human felt something break inside a wall, a veil, a chain. Suddenly, memories flooded his mind. Her laughter, her fear, her hand in his vow to protect her, no matter the cost. His death, his return, his loss, his promise. He gasped as the truth hit him like a wave. He turned to her. "I remember you for the first time." The girl smiled. A real smile full of hope and light, but the chamber shook violently. Cracks spread across the glowing floor. "The loop is breaking," she cried, "and when it breaks, the world will change forever." The human clenched his fists, then let it break. "This time, we finish it." The memory chamber shook like it was alive, trying to throw them out. Bright lines of light crawled across the walls like cracks in glass. The girl with the glowing eyes grabbed the human's arm and pulled him away from the collapsing shards. Each shard exploded into dust as time itself tried to erase every memory he had gained. The loop was falling apart, and it did not want him to remember who he was. The girl shouted over the roaring sound around them. "We must get out of here. The chamber cannot hold your memories and the curse." At the same time, the human felt the chamber shaking under his feet. He looked at the girl and nodded. "Lead the way." They ran toward the light tunnel that had opened behind them when they entered the chamber. The tunnel flickered like a dying star. The path twisted like smoke. Sometimes it felt solid. Sometimes it felt like it would vanish under their steps. The girl did not slow down. Her glowing eyes guided them as if she could see paths hidden from everyone else. The human followed her, trusting her completely. He could now feel that old bond inside him, a bond that had existed long before the curse, long before the loops, long before every broken life. They burst out of the tunnel and stumbled back into the strange forest behind the Night Elves Tavern. But something was wrong. The trees did not look the same. The ground felt different. The sky above them was darker, almost empty. Only thin threads of light moved like slow lightning across the sky. "This is not the same forest," he said. The girl nodded with a heavy look. "The tavern is moving. The loop is unstable. Time is folding in the wrong order." The ground shook again. A soft, distant humming began to fill the air. At first, it was faint. Then louder still. The human recognized the sound. It was the tavern itself. The Night Elves Tavern was drifting through the forest like a giant creature. Its wooden walls stretched, its old roof shimmered, blue flames flickered from the windows. The tavern floated above the ground as if suspended by invisible chains of time. Every few seconds it shifted between forms, sometimes old, sometimes newer. Sometimes broken, sometimes whole again. The human stared in disbelief. "How is this happening?" The girl answered softly. "The tavern is a time anchor. It keeps the loop stable. But now that you remember the truth, the tavern does not know where or when it should exist." As they watched, the tavern landed heavily on the ground, making a deep echo like thunder. Elves inside shouted and fear windows cracked. A loud groaning sound spread through the structure. "We must go inside," the girl said. "There is something you need to see. Something the elves tried to hide from you in every loop." The human took a deep breath and walked toward the tavern. Its entrance door stood crooked. The wood looked older than before. When he pushed it open, the tavern fell silent, just like the first time he entered. But this time the silence was different. It was full of fear. Elves were scattered across the room. Some were trapped under broken beams, some were hiding behind tables. Others watched the human as if he had become a prophecy standing before them. The old elf with the staff stepped forward, limping slightly. His face was pale, his voice weaker than before. "You should not have come back. You were never meant to see the truth." The girl stood in front of the human, shielding him. "You kept us in chains. You trapped us in time. You used his life to protect your own fear. This ends now." The old elf shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. The loop was made for a reason. Your power destroys balance. His existence destroys order. Together you will open the gate of stars, and that gate will not bring salvation. It will bring the end." The human stepped forward, his voice firm and clear. "Then tell me everything. No more hiding, no more lies." The old elf lifted his staff and pointed to the far end of the tavern. A hidden door shifted open. Behind it was a long path made of ancient stone. Light seeped from beneath the cracks. The elf spoke with sorrow. "This tavern stands on the first tier in time. The day you died in your past life, your soul struck the world so hard that time itself broke. The elves built the tavern here to hold the tier together. If the tavern falls, time falls, and with it all realms." The girl grabbed the human's hand. Fear in her glowing eyes, we must reach the tier. It is the only place where we can break the curse on our terms. The tavern groaned again. The walls shook, the floor split open in places. Time was running out. The human nodded. Then we go together. They stepped toward the glowing path, toward the heart of the broken curse, toward the place where their fate had first shattered. And where everything would be decided again, the hidden stone path under the tavern was colder than the forest above. The air smelled old like dust, mixed with forgotten memories. The human and the glowing-eyed girl walked slowly as faint blue light guided their steps. The floor beneath them shook from time to time as if the tavern was struggling to hold itself together. They both knew the loop was collapsing faster than before. The girl spoke softly. While walking, this place was never meant to be seen by anyone. Not even by elves. It holds the twisted roots of the curse. Every life you lived is buried here. The human felt a strange pull around him, like invisible hands touching his memories. He could sense moments of his past lives floating in the air, laughter, battle, love. He did not understand everything, but he knew all of them mattered. All of them led him to this moment. As they reached the end of the corridor, they entered a giant hall carved into the heart of the earth. Tall pillars rose into the darkness above. Blue crystals floated in the air. Spinning slowly in the center stood an old bard sitting on a broken stone chair. His hair was long and silver. His eyes were covered with a black cloth. His fingers rested on a strange stringed instrument shaped like a crescent moon. When he heard their steps, he lifted his head. His voice echoed through the hall like a forgotten dream. So the final loop has begun. The girl stepped closer. You knew we would come. The bard nodded slowly. I have seen every loop, every return, every death, every beginning, every end. I waited for the day the human breaks the chain. And today, that day is here. The human approached him, his voice firm. Tell me why this curse exists. Tell me why time fears me. Tell me why I keep returning. The bard sighed. His fingers gently touched the strings of his instrument. The sound felt older than time. He spoke. You were the one who united all realms. You created peace in an age of darkness. You stood between armies and made kings kneel to hope. But peace frightened those who thrived in chaos. A betrayal rose from the shadows. You were struck down. Your death shook the world and time split like fragile glass. The girl closed her eyes as if remembering the scene. The bard continued. The elves believed they could save the world by trapping time. They thought, if you remained forgotten the war that followed, your death would never rise again. So they cast a loop, a cruel loop-a-loop that forced you to return again and again. Without memory, without peace, without choice, the human clenched his fists. So they punished me for dying, and punished her for remembering. The girl looked at him with sadness. It was not your fault. It was never your fault. The bard lifted his instrument. Its strings glowed with pale blue light. There is only one way to break the curse, the ancient song, the song of the first tier. But the song will reveal the truth, all of it, the truth that even the elves fear, the truth that may destroy you or free you. The human took a breath. Then play it. The bard shook his head. I can. Not only she can. The girl stepped back in shock. Me? Why me? Because you were there the night the world broke. Your voice carries the light of that moment. Only your song can open the gate of stars. The hall trembled as if reacting to the name, the gate of stars, the place where time began and where it could end. The girl hesitated. Fear flickered in her glowing eyes. If I sing the song, what will happen to us? The bard answered calmly. The loop will fall. The tavern will collapse. Time will rush to correct itself. You and the human will face the truth of your past, and the world will see a path that is forgotten. The human stepped toward her, his voice gentle. I am here. You are not alone. No matter what happens, we face it together. Her glowing eyes softened. She nodded slowly. Then she lifted her hands and took a deep breath. The crystals around them floated higher. The hall filled with light. She began to sing. Her voice was not just sound. It was memory. It was pain. It was hope. It carried the broken pieces of their past and the forgotten promise they once made. The walls of the hall rippled like water. The bard's instrument hummed in harmony. The ancient song rose like a storm, and the gate of stars appeared behind them as a giant swirling portal of light and shadow. The bard whispered, "The truth awaits. You step through the gate and claim your fate." The girl finished the last note. The hall shook, the portal widened, the human took her hand. Together they stepped forward, toward the gate of stars, toward the truth buried beyond time. The light of the gate of stars swallowed them whole as they stepped through. For a moment, the human felt weightless, as if his body was drifting between worlds. He did not feel ground under his feet. He did not feel air on his skin. Only a strange hum ran through him, like the heartbeat of the universe calling his name. The glowing-eyed girl held his hand tightly. Her grip was warm, yet trembling. She looked around with wide eyes. This place exists between all realms, between the future and the past, between what was and what must be. When the light faded, they found themselves standing in a vast open space. No sky, no ground. Just endless light stretching in all directions. Floating shards of memories drifted around them like broken pieces of a forgotten dream. Each shard showed a scene from a time long lost. The human stepped closer to one shard inside it. He saw a younger version of himself standing on a battlefield covered in smoke. His sword was raised, his eyes blazing with determination. Behind him stood humans, elves, dwarves, and spirits, united as one army. He felt his chest tighten. This was who he used to be. The girl stood beside him. "This is your first life, the life you lived before the curse. The life where you changed everything." He moved to another shard. In this one, he saw himself kneeling before a group of young elves, offering them protection. He saw kindness, he saw strength, he saw leadership. The girl touched the shard gently. "You brought peace, you brought hope. But there were those who feared a world united. They believed peace made them weak. So they conspired in the shadows." The human reached the final shard. This one showed a night of fire armies clashing under a red sky. He saw himself fighting to protect a girl, her silver hair glowing, her eyes blazing like stars. She stood behind him, terrified and crying. It was her. It was the glowing-eyed girl. And he was shielding her with his life. He watched the moment he died. A spear struck his chest. He felt her scream echoed through the shard. A scream full of pain and love and loss. The shard shattered. The human staggered, his memories burned in his mind. He saw the truth. He died, protecting her. And when he died, the world that depended on him shattered. To the girl, looked at him with tears glowing in her eyes. "I tried to save you, but I was too weak. The elves feared the war that followed your death. So they cast the curse. They froze time. They trapped me in the tavern. They buried your memory and forced you to return without past or future." The groundless space around them trembled. The gate pulsed with power. The human looked at her. "If they cursed us to save the world, why bring me back again and again?" The girl stepped closer. "Because your soul is tied to the tear. In time, you are the anchor. As long as you live, the loop restarts. But now you remember, and the loop cannot hold you anymore." A loud, cracking sound echoed. The gate of stars split open further. Through the opening, they saw a new vision. The world outside was collapsing, time-bending forests, merging with deserts, mountains floating in midair. Cities appearing and vanishing in moments. "The loop is breaking," she said. "If we do nothing, the realms will fall together." The human looked toward the swirling light. "Then how do we end this? How do we free everyone?" The girl looked down. "There is only one way. You must return to the moment of your death and choose a different path. The past must face the truth. Only then can time heal." The human felt fear for the first time. "If I return to that moment, will I die again?" Her voice broke. "Maybe, maybe not. But if you do not try, the worlds will collapse. The tavern will fall. All lives will vanish inside the broken curse, including us." He took her hands in his, the warmth of her touch steadying him. "If I must face my past, then I will. And I want you with me." She nodded, her glowing eyes filled with hope and fear. "We go together." A new path opened before them. Inside the gate, a swirling tunnel leading to the past, to the night he died. To the night, everything changed. The human stepped forward. The girl stepped beside him. Their hands never letting go the gate, hummed the stars bent, time curved, they walked into the tunnel, ready to face the truth, ready to rewrite fate. Ready to end the curse that bound them for lifetimes. The tunnel of the gate twisted around them like a river of light. Each step pulled them deeper into a world where past and present were merging. The human felt every heartbeat echo through endless time. The glowing-eyed girl stayed close beside him, her hand never leaving his. They were walking toward the night he died, the moment everything had broken, the moment the curse had been born. The tunnel opened with a burst of white light. Suddenly they stood on a battlefield under a sky heavy with smoke and fire. The air smelled of ash, and fear the ground trembled under the weight of armies clashing in the distance. This was the final night, the night the world shattered. The human looked around, trying to remember where he had been. Then he saw it, a tall burning tower, the place where he had fallen. The place where the girl had cried over his body. The girl whispered, "This is the last moment before your death. Time has brought you here to make your choice." He walked forward slowly. Every part of him felt the pull of old memories. He saw soldiers running, he saw fireballs falling from the sky. He saw elves and humans fighting side by side. He saw a world desperate to survive. And then he saw his past self. A younger man with fierce eyes and a sword glowing with starfire. He was fighting a traitor, wearing black armor, a traitor the human now recognized. A powerful elf lord, the same one who began the conspiracy, the one who feared unity, the one who feared peace. The glowing-eyed girl grabbed the human's arm. That is the moment your past self is about to die. If he falls, the world breaks. If he survives, the loop never begins. They ran forward, but a wall of shimmering magic appeared, blocking their path. A deep voice echoed through the battlefield. "You should not be here." The old elf with the staff appeared. His face filled with sorrow and terror. He looked older than before, fragile, almost broken. He lifted his staff. "You cannot change the past. The loop was created to protect the world. If you undo this moment, everything will collapse." The human stepped in front of the girl, his voice calm and steady. "The world is collapsing already. The curse is dying. The tavern is falling. You cannot hold time together anymore." The old elf shook his head. His voice trembled. "You do not understand. If he lives, the gate of stars will open fully. And the power beyond will return, power no realm can control." The human lifted his hand. "Then we will face that power together." The old elf raised his staff to strike. But before he could release his spell, the glowing-eyed girl stepped forward. Her eyes shined brighter than the battlefield flames. She looked at the old elf with quiet sadness. "You chained us for centuries. You kept him trapped in endless lives. You kept me locked in the tavern. You made us relive pain again and again, but today, it ends today. We choose our own path." She lifted her hand. A wave of blue light burst from her. It shattered the wall of magic like brittle glass. The old elf stumbled back, falling to his knees. His staff cracked, magic fizzled around him. "Go," he whispered, his voice weak. "If this is the choice time accepts, then let it be." The human ran toward the burning tower. The girl followed close behind. The younger version of himself stood locked in battle. The traitor struck with deadly force. The spear pierced the younger man's chest. The girl screamed. It was the same scream from the memory shard. The scream that had echoed across every lifetime. The human reached them before the body fell. He caught his past self, just as the younger version dropped his sword. Their eyes met. The younger one whispered, "Protect her. Always protect her." And then he faded like mist. Returning to the soul of the present human, all memories rushed inside him like a storm. Strength, courage, love, loss, everything returned. The traitor turned in shock. "Who are you?" The human raised his hand. "I am the one you tried to erase." A burst of starfire shot from his palm. It struck the traitor's armor and shattered it. The traitor fell screaming as the light swallowed him whole. The sky trembled as if the world itself took a long breath. The glowing-eyed girl ran to the human, tears in her shining eyes. "You changed it. You saved yourself. You saved us. The ground shook, the gate of stars opened above the battlefield, a soft, golden light poured down, not destructive, but gentle healing. Warm, the girl looked up. Time is choosing a new path. The curse unraveled like dust in the wind. The tavern vanished, the loops ended, the realms stabilized, the sky cleared. The human held the girl close. We are free, the golden light wrapped around them. And for the first time in countless lives, they stepped forward into a future that belonged to them, a future without loops, a future without fear. A future where their story finally began instead of ending.